Imagine you are one of the biggest car companies in the world. Imagine you are Ford Motor Company. The guys who gave the world the assembly line, the guys behind the Mustang, the GT40, the RS200. A company with over 90 years of history. You decide to enter one of the fastest growing markets in the world, India. 1995 post-liberalization, you decide to partner up with one of the biggest names in the country, Mahindra & Mahindra. You set up assembly, you do your research, you spend money, you go all in, and then you launch your car. और Indians इसको भाव ही नहीं दे रहे. Today we're going to tell the story of that car, the one that Ford would rather not talk about, the one that almost ended Ford's journey in India even before it began. मैं हूं संग्राम and this is the legend of Ford Escort. 1995 तक पहुंचने से पहले शुरुआत उस बात से करते हैं जिसकी भनक शायद लोगों को होगी भी नहीं. Ford had actually been in India before. Way back in 1926, Ford India Private Limited was set up as a subsidiary for Ford Canada. They were assembling vehicles here 100 years ago. But then import restrictions came post-independence. The business became impossible to run. So by 1953, Ford just packed up and left. But जब 1995 में Ford ने re-entry मारी, तब it wasn't merely a business decision. No. It was a comeback. Ford re-entered India in October 1995 as Mahindra Ford India Limited, a 50-50 joint venture with Mahindra and Mahindra. A 50-50 joint venture with Mahindra and Mahindra, and the first car that they brought with them was the Ford Escort. Now globally, the Ford Escort had serious reputation. It had been in production since 1968, over 6 generations, highly popular in Europe and in motorsports. The Escort RS200, the Escort Cosworth, these are proper rally legends. The kind of cars that make you go weak in your knees. So on paper, bringing the Ford Escort to India made sense. It had history, it had credibility, it was a proven product. What Ford brought to India was the 6th gen European spec Escort in sedan form. Initial assembly started at Mahindra's Nasik plant using CKD units, complete knockdown units that came in from Europe and were assembled over here. The thinking was sound, the execution, well, that's where the story gets interesting. The Ford Escort was offered in 2 variants, a 1.3-litre petrol and a 1.8-litre diesel. The vehicle was specially re-engineered for India. The ground clearance, the air conditioning, brakes, clutch, all modified for Indian conditions. The original product brochure actually has this line. Even the horn has been upgraded so that your chauffeur, remember this word, can get you there on time. It came equipped with power windows, power steering on the diesel, ORVMs, air conditioning, music system. These were rare luxuries in the mid-90s. Later, Ford also offered a 1.6-litre Z-Tech petrol, which was priced around 7.5 lakhs, and that became a direct competitor to the Opel Astra. So on paper, the Ford Escort was solid, but Indians इसको भाव ही नहीं दे रहे. So why did it fail? See, the Ford Escort wasn't a bad car. Let's be clear about that. It was well engineered, it was well put together, it had serious history, and Ford genuinely tried to adapt it for Indian conditions. But there were fundamental problems. The 1.3-litre petrol came without a power steering and without power windows for the back seat. Remember that brochure that had the word chauffeur? So apparently your chauffeur in the front could operate his windows using switches while you, the boss who sat in the back seat, had to do it manually. The 1.8-litre diesel came with a power steering and the 1.3-litre petrol didn't. This was a complete misread of the Indian consumer entirely. Priced at over 7 lakhs, it was considered a premium sedan in a just liberalized economy where people were just not that wealthy yet. This was 1990s India. 800s were the aspiration. The Escort was priced for a buyer that just did not exist in large numbers yet. Not designed in India, not conceived for India, adapted for India. And that was a serious problem. The suspension tuning, the size, the way it drove, it It just felt foreign. The moment you got into it, the moment you drove it, you could just tell that this car was not designed for Indian conditions. The Indian consumer rejected it. The reality of the Indian market hit hard. The Escort sold, but it never flew. But Ford got a lesson out of it. The Ford Escort in India is actually a masterclass in what happens when a global giant underestimates a local market. When Ford came to India, it came with confidence. Confidence backed by decades of success in Europe and America. But that success slightly blinded them to the fact that India wasn't Europe. But Ford didn't run away. They didn't look at Escort's numbers and think that India wasn't worth it. They stayed, they studied, they set up a proper factory, and they came back swinging in 1999 with another legend that defined Ford's story in India for the next 2 decades. इस लेजेंड की बात हम अगले एपिसोड में करेंगे. The Ford Escort might not have been able to replicate its global legendary status in India, but in its own understated way, it has become one of the most important cars in the Indian automotive industry history. Not because of how well it sold, but because of what it taught. Do you remember seeing an Escort on Indian roads? Have you sat in one? Have you driven one? Do you remember it? I want to know. The nation wants to know. Drop a comment. Tell me, which car would you want me to dive into next? Actually, you should get an idea of what car I am diving into next. Diving. See you in the next one.